Hello, my amazing writers. We are going to be starting a new writing topic today. So, what we have in writing so far is true stories that have really happened to us, and we have made those into books. We have thought about topics such as writing about people, about places, about events, and even about our pets. Well, we are going to get to use our imagination now and start writing fiction books. Remember, fiction means fake. Okay, so when thinking about writing a fiction story, remember, fiction means fake, you get to use your very creative imagination. We are still going to be following the story hand setting, which means when we need characters, your character does not have to be you. In the past, I've always said I have to see you in your story, but not anymore. If you do not want to have you in your story, no worries, because this is a fiction story. It's fake. It doesn't have to be anything related to being real. So when we think of characters, we can still have animals, but they don't have to be our animals. They can be pretend animals. They can be imagination animals. It could be the craziest, wonkiest animal you can think of. It is up to your imagination. You can totally have people, but they don't even have to be people that you know. It could be different things that are in your fiction story. Maybe you want to write about different jobs or community helpers. You can write about dragons because it is a fiction story. These are different character ideas that you can use to brainstorm with. If you have your own fiction character in your mind, go ahead and use them, but be as creative as possible. Okay, so again, thinking back to our story hand, that was our thumb. One of our fingers was the setting. And remember, thinking back, the setting was always a place that we used to had to have been. It was either our house or maybe a grocery store or some place that we had truly been. But not in a fiction story, because in a fiction story, everything can be made up. You can do a setting like in the woods, like maybe like Little Red Riding Hood. It could be in the city. It can totally still be at school. If you want it to be a setting that's actually a true setting, like maybe your house, it can still be that setting, but it doesn't have to be. And it can be something completely made up. Maybe you want it at school, but you want to make our classroom really cool, like add a slide into our classroom or swings in our classroom, go for it. It's your made up story. You can go to the moon if you want to. Go ahead and make it up however you would like. So when writing a fiction story, you can have real people in there. Maybe you want your mom or your sister in your story. That's fine. They can totally be in there. But the events that happen in a fiction story don't have to have really happened. You can make it up. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be thinking about when we make a fiction story is the next part on our story hand. Remember, when we're doing a story hand, we have our characters, our setting, and our first, next, then, our 1, 2, 3 of what happened in the story. Well, when we're thinking about our first, we have to start a story like they do in fiction books. Now, if you think about any kind of fiction book, there's always this grand entrance into starting a book. Usually they start with a once upon a time in a faraway land, and then the story really lets you know, oh, this is going to be a fiction story. Now, if you don't want the once upon a time, that's fine. You don't have to. On here, there's a couple of different options. There's a way to start it. One spring morning, you saw a dragon in the sky. There was once a evil cat who wanted to take over the world. On a dark and stormy night. And then you tell the rest. So these are a couple of different ways to start your fiction story. But when we're starting a fiction story, we really want to tell the reader, the person who's reading your story, this is a fiction story by starting it with a great fiction beginning. So we really want to tell the reader the second they start that very first page, this is going to be a fiction story because of how I'm starting my story. Okay, so when writing a fiction story, there's a couple of things that I want you to be thinking about. I want you to be thinking about, does your picture really tell what's going on? If someone was just to look at the pictures, would they know what's really happening in your story? So make sure your pictures are kindergarten pictures. That means kindergarten colors make sense. Kindergarteners get rid of all the white spaces, and kindergartners stay inside the lines as best as they can. But make sure those pictures have details. I want you to be thinking about what topic you're going to be thinking about. And remember, this is a fiction topic, so it can be anything that you want. I want you to be thinking about, do you have your characters, your setting, and your beginning, middle, and end in your story? Remember, if you start off with a once upon a time there were space aliens, and then jump over to once upon a time there were pizzas flying in the sky, and then, oh, I was so tired I went to bed, doesn't make sense. So even when writing a fiction story, your story has to make sense. It has to be on the same idea. It has to be on the same topic. Do you have your period at the end? Do you have spaces? Remember, words have spaces. Do you remember that we really only capitalize names and not everything needs a capital? And do your best to try to remember our growing caterpillar words. I know it's kind of hard when we don't have our growing caterpillar to look at. Do your best to remember them. And then if you can't, just sound them out. Do your best. Okay, one last thing about fiction writing. When we're writing a fiction story, there's usually a problem. That means something happened in the story. If we think of a book that maybe we know, maybe The Three Little Pigs, the problem was the wolf was trying to eat the pigs by blowing down their houses. That was the problem. The Three Little Pigs is a fiction story, and there was a problem. But in order to get to that last step, the end of your story in a fiction writing, there has to be a solution. Well, the solution was in The Three Little Pigs. One of the pigs built a brick house, and the wolf couldn't eat them. It couldn't destroy the house, so they were safe. When you're thinking about writing your fiction story, think of a problem. What's going to happen in this fiction story? And at the very end, how can it be solved? If you're thinking of writing a story about going into space, maybe the problem is your spaceship broke down and now you're stranded and you don't know what to do. That would be the problem. But then maybe the solution is a bunch of alien friends helped you repair your rocket ship and you got to go back home, and that was your solution. Whatever your topic is for your fake story, your fiction story, remember, have your character, your setting, your once upon a time, a long, long time ago, your fiction beginning, your middle, and then your solution at the end. Friends, I hope that you let your brains be as creative as they want. Have fun with our fiction writing.